live.
The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those knuckleheads of liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome again to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are coming at you on February 2nd, 2022. And we have a special guest with us today, Aaron Comey of Escaping the Echo Chamber. And so today we're going to try and focus the show a little more on New York-oriented items again. So and things that are happening there. Obviously, that's a lot of crazy stuff happens in these last few years in both California and New York. So it's kind of interesting to hear a little bit about what's happening on the other side of the country. And so one of the big issues we wanted to talk about is, the issue of a little bit of justice and how it seems to be a little bit different depending upon who you are and what your political stature is. And we just had Cuomo, who I guess it was just a pretty terrible governor on a lot of levels. I mean, he wound up having this scandal with a lot of old folks that were locked into these old folks' homes during the COVID period with people that were known to have COVID. And of course, this is the most vulnerable population. And so you had thousands of elderly people dying during that time. And there was also sexual harassment allegations as well. And those items, it's funny, the deaths didn't really seem to weigh too heavily on most voters' minds. But boy, I tell you, the sexual harassment sure did. But once he was out of office, strangely, these charges just began to fall away. And if we could get the visual up from our invisible hand, we'll start digging into some of these stories here. So the first topic was essentially those charges of harassment just seemed to disappear, just to be washed away with the new year, and just crickets from most Democrats and me too. Any of you guys have any thoughts on this?
But you see, this thing gets back to the main issue here of accountability. Now, Jason, you're right. Nobody cared about the 15,000 or so people who died in the nursing homes. Nobody made a big issue out of that. But boy, they were up on arms about the sexual harassment allegations. And even though it was Cuomo's policies, his direct policies that caused those deaths, and I think I spoke about this before. One of the people who died, two people died in that 15,000, were the in-laws of Janice Dean, who's a chief meteorologist on Fox News. But nobody seemed to care about that. They care about the sexual harassment thing. It's a big deal. It went to court and the things were dismissed out of hand. And here we have another example of central planners doing things that are clearly wrong, clearly in violation of law, clearly in violation of regulation and policy and morality. And yet they face no accountability. And this seems to be a problem in our society, that the accountability of central planners just seem to be going out the window. It's just flying away like our rights and our liberties here in these great United States of America.
Boy, yeah, you can kill a bunch of old people like me because, what are we good for? But don't be touching those boobies, okay? I don't know. And, to play devil's advocate, I don't know what evidence they were looking at. I do, my rudimentary understanding of the law, I know that they are not just required to, to come up with evidence. They have to have evidence beyond reasonable doubt. So, maybe on both of these issues, the sexual harassment and the dead people with gray hair, they both maybe did not have the requirements to win the case by the prosecution. So, I'll play devil's advocate, give them the benefit of the doubt on that, because I don't know personally what it is they're actually referring to. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't be able to apply the law in a way that an attorney who's familiar with the way to win a case in court or not, or lose. I can't speak to that. So I'm just playing devil's advocate, and that's as far as I can go.
Well,
don't be touching them boobies.
Yeah. I mean, Tim, I see a point. I mean, yes, in criminal cases, you have to have and so reasonable.
Uh-oh, looks like you're freezing out, Leon. Let's find out what our New York guest has to say about it all.
And so, yeah, like to Tim's point, yeah, definitely there's the heightened standard of, beyond a reasonable doubt. And there's also another aspect of that even if he was guilty of sexual harassment, it's not necessarily going to rise to the level of criminal actions. So he could be found, liable for that, fired, and even held civilly liable for hostile work environment and stuff like that. But what's crazy is that so many people are trying to use the fact that he hasn't been charged as, oh, see, this was just a witch hunt. I tell you, Trump was behind that. I've literally heard people say that Trump was behind this. It's
Russians too, maybe.
Yeah, the Russians. Yeah, maybe I'm sure the Russians. Yes.
Like, how does Trump control New York politics? This makes no sense. But like it's like he's got so much power in New York that. And this is why he was able to get away with what he's done for so long, because people were scared to death of him. Even you saw when that the Asian politician came out against him, and he's like, boom, I will crush you. Like, he told this guy.
And was that a state congressman, or was that a federal congressman?
I think it was state.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he was in the New York Assembly, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yeah.
And but like with what's I find so interesting is that in New York State, every year we have to go through sexual harassment training. Every year there's this video we watch, and the state actually has videos that for the sexual harassment training, and the person who made that law was Andrew Cuomo. So,
It just doesn't get any crazier.
Well, the rules,
like you can't make this up.
The rules, Aaron, there we go again. The rules are for you, right? For you, it's not for him, right?
Yes,
okay?
Exactly.
He's above the law.
And the people that were maskless at the restaurant that made the rules regarding the kids wearing masks at school and so on and so forth, and everybody else wearing them. So at what I don't know what to say anymore. Honestly, I just don't know.
This is one of the things, as you brought up something interesting, Aaron, about I guess it sounds like in some kind of state employment, you're getting training that's saying, hey, look, don't do this, and I also happen to work for government as well. And that is something too, that we get training constantly about conflicts of interest and sexual harassment, like you're saying. And it amazes me that this is departing a little bit from New York, but you go to the national level and you see these people trading on stocks that they have, front end knowledge of, and that they're things that they're literally influencing with their the legislation that they're pushing, and wow, and they all come out richer in the end, and it's just like big head scratcher. I wonder what's going on there, but somehow it's like completely eludes them that Nancy Pelosi was I guess quoted as saying recently that I believe that they should have the opportunity to be involved in these markets.
It's a free market, and they should have the right like anybody else. I think she said something very close. She has the right like anybody else to participate in the free market. That is what her words.
Yeah.
Imagine Nancy Pelosi, this big socialist, this very wealthy socialist, by the way, telling us about the free market. Isn't that wonderful?
So
Yeah.
she's using governmental regulation to unfree the so-called free market, and then she's got the audacity to call it the free market when she's making it less free by regulating it and to their advantage, or be able to pick winners and losers. So
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it's mind-boggling, all this complete total nonsense that comes from these government people.
Well, as awful as Cuomo has been in New York, you guys have had a whole string of awful people there, and one of them is DeBlasio, who recently left as mayor. But I guess you guys aren't necessarily free and clear of that guy either. Maybe we could get the visual up on that one too. DeBlasio was recently just finished his term as mayor, and so you guys thought, hey, finally we can breathe, he's gone. And suddenly he's talking about running for governor, I guess, or some other position. You have any thoughts on that, Aaron? He's keeping you awake at night?
Well, it was obvious to me that that's what his last mandate was about. His last mandate was clearly, okay, let me make this big play, this big move that's going to put something on my resume so that I can cement myself as the front runner for governor. And I was like in this climate, I was like, wow, as hated as he is, it might just work. But the good news is, because he recently realized that, because I don't know if you remember when he ran for president and nobody cared. They was like, what do you do? In fact, not only did nobody care, they actually were like, okay, wait a minute. You use city funds to facilitate your run for president. Yeah, you're going to have to come up off that money. So I'm guessing what this was just people behind him, consultants, trying to get some more money out of him. But he came to his senses and realized that he has no chance. He decided he's not going to run, so that's the good news. Like, it was something that I was like, I hope this doesn't go anywhere. But apparently he realizes that he sucks too, like everybody else does.
I guess Blasio was going to run with the mantra, "I will do for America what I've done for New York City."
Yes.
Okay? So which would have been just wonderful. Maybe he could explain to us the $175 million or the $200 million that his wife used to run some scam in New York. I guess we don't know what happened to that money yet, Aaron. I would like to know about that one. So maybe he was going to do something good for America, that the same thing that he did for New York City. But you're right. I did hear that he was not going to. He decided not to run. Lord. Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me he would have the unmitigated gall to come out with that same thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely he would. Yeah. Like he would have definitely tried to do, on a larger scale what he had already done.
Yes. And campaign on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the funny thing is, if he did for the United States what he did for New York, where are we all going to escape to? There's a big escape to Florida and some of those other states at the moment. But, now it's like, got to leave the country, too. It's getting serious. He run for
Except we wouldn't be
world?
able to unless we were...
Well, maybe we'll have some mass migration to Mexico, I guess, and then we'll have Kamala trying to find the root causes. That'll be difficult. Yeah, we'll have to find that.
Well, if she's guarding the border, I'm sure we can all just waltz through.
So. No problem. Yeah.
Well, that's not apparently the only problem or only interesting issue going on in New York. And one of the interesting issues that came up recently, and, some of this is probably gamesmanship with politicians, but recently there's been, and maybe we could get a visual on this too, there has been an issue with expanding voting rights in New York City to include non-citizens. And so this is kind of an interesting issue for liberty-minded people. I mean, who should have the right to vote? Certainly, we've seen a lot of concern at the federal level on whether or not there's people voting who should or should not be voting. But in the case of a city where, you know, they're just controlling it, this is not to control who votes in the federal election necessarily, but who votes in the local election. And in New York, they're trying to say, well, these people, they're paying taxes and all these other things. So, you know, maybe they should have some say. And I think it'd be an interesting question for libertarians on exactly at what point should people be restricted from voting? Should they have to somehow be constrained by the contract of government? You know, should they be a citizen? It certainly seems that way at the presidential election, but at a very local level, maybe, you know, maybe it does make sense if you have a lot of people who are there who, you know, are using services and paying taxes, if at least in the sense of sales taxes and such. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, this is like I've actually had people on my channel say, "Hey, you gonna do a video about this?" And I'm like, "Not yet," because I'm not sure. Because I'm weighing the options, and I'm like, I get the original, like I get some of the pushback. That's like, you know, hey, these people aren't even citizens. But at the same point, it's like you're talking about, they're paying taxes, you know, and then you go to that taxation without representation. It's like, this isn't as cut and dry an issue. And it's like, especially when you're dealing with local government, this is the government that has so much control over our day-to-day lives, and giving them the option to participate in the voting system. I mean, it's clearly, I don't think that the politicians are doing this because they're altruistic and actually care about people being able to, you know, it's in New York City. It's because they know they have in fact, yeah, it's a very cynical move on New York City's part. They know they have the Democrats have New York City on lock. They know that, and they've just last year they changed the election law to kill third parties, and now they're like, okay, so now we can make sure that these votes are coming to us. And I think what it is just trying to increase their numbers, in terms of for statewide elections. So they have, well, okay, no, because it's only for city elections right now. But they're just trying to make sure that they have no competition, nobody can challenge them, and so I'm based on the fact that the government clearly has ulterior motives. I'm not sure about this issue. This is a really interesting issue.
Well, I am totally against this. Okay. I do not believe non-citizens should be voting in any election in the United States. New York City is not alone in this thing. Okay. San Francisco have done this. There's a city in Vermont, I don't remember what it is, have also done this. But we should not reward illegal conduct. If somebody walk across our border, they're here illegally. If they overstay their visa, they're here illegally. And they should not be rewarded in any way, shape, or form. I know they pay taxes. I know some of them probably do all the so-called dirty jobs and all that. But they are here illegally, and they should not be rewarded in any way. And the right to vote is precious. And if you're allowing someone who's here illegally to vote, you are diluting the vote of people, of American citizens. That's what you're doing. So I'm totally against this.
What's our screaming eagle think?
I had something in mind, and then Leon jumped in, and it jumped out of my mind. I can't remember what it was. I must not have been that important, but anyway. Yeah, so you've got Aaron on one side, Leon on the other, I guess. I'm caught in the middle.
Well, don't try to split the baby, man. Come on, pick a side.
I've been up since 4:30 this morning. I'm a little bit rummy right now.
Well, but yeah, you've got to vote. It's that important. So you've got to cast your ballot.
You got to cast a ballot somewhere.
But I am close to Mexico. Maybe I could run down to Tijuana and vote in their election and see what they have to say.
But okay, but but think about this though. Where would it stop though? Where would it stop? Is it next that next? Well, now we're gonna give illegal aliens the right to vote in city elections, and then next thing we're gonna do in state elections and then federal elections. Where will this thing stop? If somebody could just walk across the border and say, "Okay, fine, I want the right to vote."
Well, I don't know. They have to obey the laws and they have to pay taxes on income earned here, right? Maybe they feel a privilege. You know, maybe they feel that it's their responsibility to have a say in what laws they have to obey and what taxes they have to pay.
Well, then they should come here illegally. They should come here legally, and then they would be able to do that.
Okay, let's assume they're here legally. Let's assume they have a green card or any other visa of some sort, and they're here and they've been living here, and you know, working and paying taxes and so on. You know, let's assume that. And then now, you don't want them to be able to vote in some local election, maybe a state election.
Not if they are green card holder. I was once a green card holder. No. Okay. Because you are diluting the votes of American citizens if you allow non-citizens to vote. That's what you're doing. You're changing the outcome of election. You could. Well, in New York City, it's probably not going to make a difference. But then if this is implemented in cities where it's a close call between, you know, the left and the right, you could change the outcome of the election by allowing illegal non-citizens to vote. No, and that should not happen. No.
Go ahead, Aaron.
What I would think though is depending on the like in New York, Democrats control. But like if you're dealing with different demographics, so let's say you have a large legal immigrant population from like Cuba.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily lean left. They tend to lean.
True.
They tend to right. So it's not going to be a guaranteed issue of where if we're dealing with legal immigrants, where they're going to vote, because there are some legal immigrant populations that will lean right. That will identify more with Republican laws and conservative values.
I think the one thing I see on Leon's side of this too, though, is because you make a good point that it doesn't necessarily mean for sure, depending upon where you're at, you know, which way the migrants are going to vote. But on the other hand, too, I think it's true you do have some wealthy migrants, but for the most part, I think a large percent of the migrants are in economic desperation of one sort or another. And I think the concern is that if anybody can vote and they're not sort of, I guess, they don't have necessarily skin in the game already, that maybe they're going to just vote for free stuff, you know, right? And if you had too much of that, and of course, I think that's one of the reasons why the Democrats sort of favor this, is because they're usually tend to be offering a lot of the free stuff. But
our taxpayer dollars is paying for that free stuff. Yes, but go ahead, Jason. You're right.
You know, that was my only point. Is I think, you know, I certainly would love to see more of an open borders policy, but as far as citizenship and the rights that come with that, I would almost like to see kind of a long pathway, like say a set 5 or 10 year pathway to say, okay, you know, you're here, you don't cause any problems for 5 years or something, then you have the right to vote and go do what you want to do and everything else. But I certainly don't. I would like, as a libertarian-minded person, I would like to see people move as freely as possible from one place to another. So,
well, I'm with you on the free movement, Jason, but I want it done legally. Okay, it took me 16 years to come. I came here on a student visa. I was always here legally, but it took me 16 years to go from that to an American citizen. Okay, I don't. If I had to wait that long, I don't see why anybody else can't. All of a sudden, you're so damn impatient, you could walk across the border and 30 days later, you could be voting in New York City? Bullshit. Oh, sorry.
Leon paid his dues and suffered along, and doggone it, you're going to suffer right along.
Well, you know, we're getting pretty close to the end of our show, and so we like to end these things off with something kind of crazy that some politician said. And since we've been talking about these practically dictators from New York. This one really hits home with how these guys think, and maybe we could get a visual on this too, just so you can see who said it. So this guy Paul Begala, he's the guy over here on the left hand side of the screen there, just in case pronouns are an issue here. but so he's the guy who's over there, and he is literally said that he made this statement about what's wrong with the Democrat Party as he's talking with the other people there on CNN in this panel. And he says, I think the problem for Democrats right now is not that they have bad leaders, it's that they have bad followers. So I think what he's saying is the problem isn't with the shepherds, it's with the sheep. So sheep, you better get in line because you're creating all the problems. I can't think of anything more condescending, short of what Hochul said in our last Knucklehead Noise Patrol, which was where she compared all of the voters to 5-year-olds.
You know, as a dancer who enjoys swing dancing and Latin dances and so on, I'm going to use that excuse. It wasn't my leading that messed up this dance. It was because you're a bad follower. That's what I'm going to do.
I don't know why anybody would want to vote for these people. Seriously. You turn around, you spit on these people by insulting them and telling them, oh, it's because of you we are in the bad shape we are, and then I'll turn around and vote for you? No.
Well, they're proving their point right there. I mean, they're such bad followers, they'll be insulted and just keep right on following.
So, Aaron, what do you think about this, Aaron?
It's insane. It really is insane. Like, it's one thing to insult the other side's followers, to insult your own. Like, it's like, are you trying to lose the next? Like, are you like, hey, don't elect us. We're good.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to win any more elections ever.
That does sound like something that Cuomo would have told everybody. Hey, the problem's not with me, it's you guys.
Yeah. When Cuomo was sexually harassing all those women, it's not my problem, it's your problem for just being here. What's wrong with you? God.
Don't you realize how charming I am?
That's exactly.
They were born with boobies. I mean, crying out loud. He sees them, he's got to touch them. I mean, come on, let's give the guy a break, okay?
Well, maybe Psaki will take on this line at the White House press briefings and just tell everybody, hey, look, problem's not Biden, it's you.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we've reached the end of our time, but thanks so much for joining us today. And I'd like to thank our special guest again, Aaron Comey, and let you know to go visit his YouTube page, Escaping the Echo Chamber. He has a lot of good stuff there. So until next time, thanks so much, and we'll see you. We'll see you then.
Good having you on the show, Aaron.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.